Welcome back, and in this segment we will be talking about historical Cairo and the various important Islamic capitals before the establishment of Cairo as a capital of Egypt. And we will be talking also about some of the most important and historical Islamic landmarks in the city. And we're joined today by tour guide Mr. Samir Abbass. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Samir. Let's first tell our viewers the difference between Old Cairo and New Cairo.
You know, Old Cairo is a very loose term, which is in the travel business, we are using that to refer to the area of Coptic Cairo. That's where the churches, a cluster of churches, exist in a very old part of Cairo, which is considered the oldest part of Cairo, by the way. It was exists even before Cairo. That's where the Romans, they have their own camp and they have their own fortress known as Babylon Fortress, and that dates back, roughly speaking, to the 2nd century AD, nearly 1800 years ago. So that's a very good start to tell people the differences between historical, old, and Great Cairo, the city we are living in right now. So Great Cairo today consists of different cities. The main cities of Great Cairo today is Cairo and Giza. The east is Cairo and the west is Giza. So we are not talking about the west part of Cairo today because that is the oldest part in Great Cairo. That's where the pyramids and Giza, and has something to do with the ancient Egyptian civilization. Today we are talking about the east part, which is the part which is called Cairo. So when we talk about Cairo, we are talking only to the east part, not to the west part. So in Cairo, as established around 642, and that was the first capital started by the Muslims, the Arabs, when they made it to Egypt.
Which is the Fustat.
It wasn't, that's right, it wasn't called Cairo in that time. You are completely right. You know, it was named Cairo starting from around the 10th century. But in that time it was called the Fustat. That was the first city built, more specified 642. And since there was different dynasties from Arabs and from Muslims backgrounds, they overruled Egypt from 642 until the end of medieval time. There was almost every dynasty built a new quarter to house their army. Yes. So that's the first illustration, or the first map I had, is a general map of Cairo, Great Cairo, with I made a red circle on the area we are talking about today, which is the east part, and more specified the central east part of Great Cairo today. And the second illustration, which has zoom in on the east part of the Nile River, that's where historical Cairo exists, that's what we are talking about.
Is this the
exactly? And if we zoomed in the map, it would be 4 circles, actually 5 circles in this map. Circle number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5. And these circles shows how the city evolved from Fustat as the first capital built in this part of the city, into Al-Askar, built by the Abbaside, into Al-Qata'a, built by Ibn Tulun, into Al-Qahira, which is corrupted into Cairo later on, and that became the source name for Cairo. And that's built by the Fatimid, and then later on the fort built by Salah ad-Din in the 12th century, putting all of these cities together, putting a wall all around the cities to put all of them and give the name Cairo to the 4 cities. And then today, or in modern time, from 1800, that was Muhammad Ali and his family in downtown Cairo and this area. So the circles I put, which is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, shows the different stages of the extending of the city of historical Cairo.
So now let's start from the very beginning. Let's start by Al-Fustat. And you told me before the start of the segment that actually Al-Fustat is an area which actually is underlooked, and very few people know more than the Amr ibn al-As Mosque.
So, talking about Fustat, we're talking about circle number 1 in the map. So, more specified, to give a physical description of people to understand where Fustat is. Many people knows where exactly Amr ibn al-As Mosque is. It is the area behind Amr ibn al-As. It is a vast area. There is a wall around it, and there is nothing inside. I mean that there is not much buildings inside. That's the Fustat excavation site. It is acknowledged as an archaeological site by the Egyptian Antiquities Department. I have the chance to visit the Fustat archaeological sites many times. It's hardly anybody go there. When you ask the curator there, It's maybe 1 or 2 person every couple of weeks make a step to Al-Fustat.
So is it open to the public?
It is open to the public, and they have a ticket there as well. But the problem is it is still not well excavated, and there is no good infrastructure or things like to help tourists or visitors to walk around and enjoy the site. And on top of that, there is the lands of the archaeological site has been already overtaken
There
by...
is a photograph. Is it related to Al-Fustat or
No,
that's
actually that's in
different?
Mu'izz Street.
This
If
is
we
in
can
Mu'izz.
jump to another, there is one of the last photos I brought.
Does it have a number?
That will be the number 9 or 10, as far as I
So
remember.
you
That's the
need
last.
photograph number 9 or
Yes.
10.
So
You know,
do you
from
think that
the
we
last
should
photos.
do some
Yeah.
developments, renovations to areas like Al-Fustat, as we did with Al-Mu'izz Street, which
Yes.
is now so popular among Egyptians
Because
and tourists?
if we lost Al-Fustat Street, there is no way to get it, to recover that again. Al-Fustat is the oldest part of historical Cairo.
Yes.
It's 1400 years old. The foundation of the building is still there.
Yes.
There is columns, capitals, buildings, fancy buildings. You can tell from the foundations. There is bathhouses. There is wells.
This is
So
the
that's
photograph
what I'm
number
talking
9.
about.
Is
That's
this the one you wanted?
Exactly. That's one of the photos.
Yes.
That's one of the biggest houses in the Fustat area.
Yes.
And there is another photo which is showing one
The
of
following one, number 10?
the following one.
Number 10.
That will be showing how, unfortunately, people living around the site taking over the land, the archaeological sites, building houses on it, and that's a serious problem happening there. Not only in Fustat, it happens in different remote areas around.
So do you mean that people are
Cairo.
building houses
Around.
on lands of Al-Fustat?
On lands, yes, on land of Fustat, and that's happening, by the way, in many other remote sites as well. But what I cannot
Here it is. The
understand,
photograph is
that's
now on
that's what
screen.
I'm talking about. You see the big heap of rubbles in the background.
Yes.
That is an official dumping site.
A dumping site.
Dumping site. That's on the Fustat. There is people charging money. I don't know for who they are working for. People charging money for the pickup truck, bringing debris and sand or like leftover from construction sites to dump it on the archaeological sites. And the worst scenario can happen that when they finish the filling that, they might build houses on the top. That means that we will lose this part of the history forever. And that's like a coal. You can consider like coal. You can see
Yeah,
the
you can
arrow.
see
I'm
better,
pointing.
yeah.
I'm pointing the.
So do you mean that this is Al-Fustat area? It's a deserted
That's-
area with no houses and
Yes,
no buildings? Just
You know, this area is the archaeological site of Fustat. That's a very recent photo, only 2 weeks ago, showing what's happening
it's
there
the
2 weeks
the
ago.
middle of Cairo?
That's in the heart of Cairo.
Yes,
You know, behind Amr ibn al-As Mosque.
yes.
And
It is deserted like that.
It is deserted like that. It's so historically, Al-Fustat has been burnt in the medieval time
Yes.
in political conflicts.
So since
But
then
it's
there is-
still
there are- there's
buried
no
under
buildings.
the ruins. You know, when you go there, there is lots of columns and foundation of houses showing you how luxury this city was. In historians saying that back in that time, 1400 years ago, there was 4 and 5 stories buildings, houses within this area, giving you an idea of how luxury and how
Beautiful.
beautiful it was. So apart from Fustat area, we have Al-Mu'izz Street.
Yes.
and
So we can
Al-Mu'izz area.
return to photograph number 4 once
Exactly.
again. Yes.
So there is a map which is showing Al-Mu'izz Street. That is one of the best examples of renovations and bringing history
Yes.
back to life. So Al-Mu'izz and Fatimite Cairo has been acknowledged as a UNESCO World Site. So that's one of the famous attractions in Al-Mu'izz
Yes.
Street, known
Yes.
as Al-Hakim Mosque, and that is next to the North Gate, which is Al-Futuh Gate. There is 2 gates in the north.
Yes.
The most preserved gates lies from historical Cairo in and around Al-Mu'izz Street. 2 in the north, Al-Futuh and Al-Nasr, and 1 in the south is called Bab Zuwayla. So in the street connecting Al-Futuh to Bab Zuwayla, which is called Ali 1000, that is the nickname, which is because it's 1,000-year-old. We are lucky that this area has been acknowledged as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. I hope we can bring the UNESCO attention to acknowledge Al-Fustat.
Yeah.
as a
What
World
about this
Heritage Site.
photograph? This is interesting because I think that's how it looked in medieval times, isn't
I will
it?
tell you what was
Yeah.
in mind when I choose these
Yes.
photos. So there is, I made a visit to Petra, different visit to Petra in Jordan, and I found that the guards there, they have been dressed like the like the medieval style.
Till now, you mean?
Now, I'm talking about now. You know,
to demonstrate it to the visitors.
Exactly. So I think, and now in Wise Street, there is different stands hiring customs, you know, for people to wear and take pictures, and that makes a great attraction there. So what if we started a project to convince and attract the attention of the sellers who are selling and promoting for their shops there, and there is many of them, to dress like the medieval traders? That will attract attention. So if that became, you cannot enforce that, but you can encourage them by having a better business.
It will be like a fun moment for the visitors.
That will be guaranteed. So the tourists, they like when we travel, when we take them along the Nile Valley, when they find somebody wearing a galabeya, traditional galabeya and headdress, they stop and they like to take photos with. So think about having the traders along the Moise Street dress the same style as back in medieval time. Think about the number of tourists. They would like to go there mainly, not just for the history, but also to see and take pictures and enjoy the atmosphere. So to see that coming back alive, to see medieval Cairo coming back alive again.
So what about other places? As you said, we have many capitals, old capitals other than Cairo. We have Al-Fustat, we have Tala'a,
Al-Asr and Qata'a, yes.
Qata'a.
So because of the political conflicts and wars happens between the Abbasid and Ptolemite and the revenge between both of them, unfortunately, hardly anything remains from Al-Asr or Qata'a today. And except for Ibn Tulun Mosque, a very famous mosque that was built on a high rock on the heart of Al-Qata'a, exactly, and that's like in the central part of Cairo as well. You can see it from the citadel. It is overlooking the citadel, and except for this mosque, which is considered a unique example of Islamic architecture, there is hardly anything remains from Al-Qata'a. Possibly still things is buried around, but historically the Abbasid army leveled the city as punishments or as revenge from Ibn Tulun and ambitious to take over Egypt and declare his family or independence of the Abbasid empire in Qatar.
Now, what about that particular mosque? I understand that it's unique in its architectural features. So can you just shed some light on it in brief?
One of the unique things about this mosque is the minaret. The minaret is considered the only one of it's a silent Eid, which is built like the Samarra, Baghdad, Abbasid minarets. The difference is most of the minarets in Egypt has been influenced from the ancient lighthouse of Alexandria when the Mamluks built these fancy minarets, and with a spiral ascent from inside. This minaret has a spiral ascent from outside, not from inside. Not only. So the mosque itself is built like a fortress on a high grounds with double wall, with a frieze over there like soldiers holding hands together, with big gates, solid, secured, with big windows as well, which is elevated higher than the ground level to make it to ventilate the mosque well and to make it difficult to take over the mosque. So huge in size. It's the second largest one after Amr ibn As Mosque, and the only one in Cairo which is still keeping the oldest mosque in Cairo, keeping its original architecture elements as it is from the 9th century. So it is also humble in decoration, which is unlike many other mosques reflecting the pure Islamic style of decoration.
Yes, I'd like to return back to the photographs so that we can explain more about them because you've got so many things and we'd like to talk more about some of these pictures. What else have you brought to us so that as you're talking we'll display it?
So if we can go on the rest of the photographs,
let's look at the pictures.
One by one. And
so we've seen this one. So we need to flip to the next one.
So so my intention today was to differentiate just another medieval paintings. There is, and the good news is there is lots of travelers, historians. They made a visit to Cairo, and that was the golden age of Cairo back in that time.
There is more
and
again.
That's the kind of public transport, like a taxi service back in that time. I will tell you a personal story of I have a guest, an individual,
this is
a
during
family.
Which era?
That's medieval time. You can say the 12th 12th, 13th century.
Yeah, we can see the ladies and they are all draped and they even have what at that time was the burqa or the yashmak on their face. Yeah.
So, and I introduced this, that was, they were American couple, introduced them to a local family in Luxor, living in a farm, in a very humble house, and they have a meal there with them, a very simple meal,
Yeah,
and
we've seen this one.
their way back to the hotel. So there was a donkey cart owned by the farmer, took them back to the hotel. We had the fancy car to take them back to the hotel, and the hotel wasn't that far.
Yes.
But they enjoyed that most, better than any other part.
Yeah, here
of
it
the
is.
trip.
That's a closer
So,
shot
and
of it.
of course, we cannot apply the same thing today, but I'm talking about some new ideas and out-of-the-box ideas to bring people attention to this area. Instead of the golf cart, I like the golf cart there, which is that's a very
Actually,
fancy.
Mr. Samir, talking about Cairo and old capitals needs lots of episodes, but now we have to wrap up our edition for now. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Samir Abbass, tour guide, for being with us.
You're welcome. You know, if I will choose one thing, which is the most important today, was El Fustat, and we have to give more attention to El Fustat area and the land which is overtaken.
We will be
by
continuing talking about that in more detail, in more depth,
Different
because we
editions.
haven't covered it all. So we're still going to dedicate more episodes for it. And I'd like to thank you very much. Thank you very much, tour guide
Glad to
and
be with you.
Egyptologist, Mr. Samir Abbass, for this interview. And that brings us to the end of this episode of Breakfast Show. But first of all, I have to thank my colleague Dina Adel. Thank you very much, Dina.
Thank you. Thank you, Rasha.
Shireen.
Shireen, yes. Thank you, Rasha, and see you tomorrow with the new crew. Bye.